Right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Charles Davis. Welcome to the Ethos Village webinar, where tonight our topic is going to be the mental health of a student athlete during COVID and beyond. And this is promising to be very educational, a tremendous learning experience for all of us, because these are challenging times for everyone in the world, let alone in our world. As I said, my name is Charles Davis. Let me introduce you to our panelists tonight. First, we have Stacey Flores, who's currently pursuing her PhD in sociology at Arizona State University, holds a bachelor's degree in English, a master's degrees in higher and post-secondary education, and a master's in counseling. I'm already feeling like I have not gone nearly enough when I hear what Stacey does. She's worked on projects for the NFL, U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, high school coaches and athletes. Over 10 years of experience in working in education, in high schools to colleges and universities, and works with students and athletes, helping prepare for their transition both academically and professionally. Work with athletes includes amateur and professionals, former two-sport collegiate athlete. For all the rest of you great athletes out there, that's two sports, not one. He continues to coach high school softball and cross country. Our second panelist is Mr. Isaiah Woods, student athlete, has a great story to tell. We're looking forward to hearing what he has to tell us tonight. Also on the panel tonight is his mom, Mrs. Chieko Woods. Looking forward to her story. You can't imagine being a mom, working her way through all of this, bedrock what we have going on here. Also with us tonight, Mr. Everson Walls, Black College Football Hall of Famer, soon to be Professional Football Hall of Famer. Eager to have him on, and of course, Michael Davis, who makes a lot of this possible. Have I missed anyone who is on our panel tonight? Okay. Oh yeah, I have actually. Coach Jay Hayes. Yeah, Coach Jay Hayes. Many years in the professional game. I've had the pleasure of working with him and his brother Jonathan and seeing them grow and flourish and raise outstanding families who have gone on, not just athletically, but academically, to be highly successful. So really looking forward to all of you offering incredible comments and things tonight. And before we begin, I would like to have us show a video about the mental health of student athletes to tee everything up for this evening. Please roll the video.
Today we are launching a series called Stressed Out Teens, highlighting young men and women who have made mental health a priority in their lives. Kids like Isaiah Woods, who felt like a champion on the college football field, but off the field knew his biggest obstacle was not the next first down. 2 years ago, freshman Isaiah Woods was taking the field for the Washington Huskies. A top-ranked wide receiver from Los Angeles, Isaiah played in all 13 games during the 2015 season, impressing coaches and fans with his athleticism and versatility.
I wouldn't have had it any other way. That's what you work so hard for.
But while he was fighting battles on the gridiron, he was fighting another battle off the field.
Just everything seemed dark, like figuratively and literally. Like just waking up, I didn't want to wake up that much, like get out of bed, do anything.
Unbeknownst to his teammates, friends, and even his family, Woods was suffering from crippling anxiety and depression.
I was having anxiety attacks, like little panic attacks type things, to where you couldn't breathe. I have asthma, so I know like what not breathing and like gasping for breath is, and it feels completely different than that.
Despite those warning signs, Isaiah forged ahead and continued playing.
It got worse and worse, and just to the point where I knew I actually had to ask for help, because I'm the person that will never let something break me. I'm always, like I said, the strong one between my friends, so I don't like asking for help. I'm very stubborn in that area.
In the spring of 2016, Woods checked into the University of Washington Medical Center to undergo treatment. His mom remembers receiving a phone call from him.
I can relive them over and over again, and it's still, sorry. I got a call from him when he was in the hospital, and I'm thankful that that he had the wherewithal to pick up the phone, because he could have made so many other choices.
I kind of had to sit in like a holding cell type area, you know, with nothing on the walls and stuff. And then you talk to a social worker after a couple hours, like 2 or 3 hours in there. And then they admitted me into the program.
It was there Isaiah realized a change was necessary. And when he was released from the hospital, he posted this powerful message to Twitter, announcing he was leaving the game and college. I wasn't the same. I lost love for the game I've been playing ever since I could walk, and it seemed more like a job to me than fun. Waking up in the morning got harder and harder, and it got to the point where I didn't want to wake up at all.
I knew something had to be going on, and I was scared because it's like, okay, you're walking away from this full ride scholarship and something that you've been so passionate about your whole life, football, you're just willing to walk away from it.
It's important to let somebody know, start that process to feel better, because that's not an okay feeling, and I would never want anybody to feel like that at all.
Well, I'd say that's pretty powerful to get us started. And I want to start with Isaiah, because I'm looking at this strong, confident, powerful young man who said during that interview with Megyn Kelly, you don't like to ask for help, but at a certain point you did.
Yeah.
And when you look back at that time frame to where you are right now, can you kind of, illuminate for the rest of us from there to then, what got you there and how are you doing now?
For sure. Just then I was just dealing in a lot of stuff that had to do with my personal life that I really never took the time to take time and get through. And then also just with the rigors of being a student athlete and being a true freshman. So all of that kind of played into it a little bit. Yeah, after the hospital, they just really taught me certain ways to handle my situations and kind of how to talk about it and get through things, and basically just helped me create a plan and just realize that this is my decision, whatever I want to do, and just do things to make yourself healthy. So I've been, I won't say great, but I've been a lot better since then, so I know I'm always going to have to deal with anxiety and depression. It's something that comes with your whole life. It doesn't just go away, but I'm on top of it for sure and just handling it and taking things day by day.
Isaiah, you made the decision, the very difficult one, obviously, to walk away from the University of Washington to make sure you took care of yourself. After you were able to obtain help, as you said, formulate a plan, what was the next step for you? Because I believe you went back to football, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Football is always a part of me. It's always something I love. It's just, for me, I had to figure out why I was playing football. If it was for me or if it was for somebody else. I just really had to relearn myself and learn who Isaiah was as a person, not as a football player, as a college athlete, or anything like that, just who I was truly.
Mrs. Chieko Woods, moms know everything about their children, right? You can sense every movement, you know what's going on. You can be thousands of miles away and you'll wake up in the middle of the night and say, hey, there's something going on with my son. But this might not have been one of those things, right? I mean, this tells you about the power of what we're dealing with here, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Isaiah he let me know that there was things going on, but as a single parent and your son having the opportunity to play Division I football, you're like, you've worked so hard to get to this point, and maybe it's just homesick. He has a little sister, he's very close. Isaiah and I are very close. And so it was like, okay, I'll fly you home for all the holidays and I'll fly up and see you. And we'll spend more time as much as we can to see each other and spend time together. And there were still things that were going on. And he's like, Mom, something is not right. And so for me, I had done all the encouraging things that I could do and say. And I got to the point where it was like, okay, I know that every team has a team psychiatrist, psychologist that can help. So now let's reach out to them and see what we can do. Because it got to the point where there was nothing I could do or say anymore. And so I flew up and we met with the doctors and started the process.
So you've been there pretty much.
I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, and thankful for moms like you, parents like you, because you're there. Once you know that something's going on, you're there for your child. Dr. Flores,
Absolutely.
when you see these things and you know these situations and you're called in to help with these situations, what do you see underlying, overt, all the things that go into it? Because you know as well as I do, as a big time athlete, we're not supposed to be like this, right? We're supposed to shake it off and move forward and nothing's going to bother us. So Dr. Flores, can you help us, understand a little bit more, and also tell us what the courage it takes to actually speak up and say you need some help?
So first, I appreciate you calling me doctor. I'm still on the path to doctor. I'm not quite
As
there
far as
yet.
I'm concerned, with all those degrees you have, that's doctor. So we're moving on from there.
So I will tell you that in my counselor training, there's a couple of things, right? I've really taken what I've learned and learned to more apply it as a coach, right? Because there's different levels. You can go in the clinician way, which I have not practiced as a clinician because I've been so active with my athletes as a coach, okay? And so the real challenge really is, and what I've learned through my experience of working, is the fact that, athletes from a very young age, you're taught that athlete mentality. You've got to be strong, you got to be tough. The mental toughness in some cases is a difference between a win or a loss, right? When you're going through slumps, I was a softball player. So when you're going through that, you really got to try to reframe yourself. And I remember when I was listening to Isaiah's story and I was kind of thinking about some of the athletes that I worked with, is that when you're in high school, right, in order to get to college, you really have to be the best. And then you get to college and the playing field's the same. Now you're competing, you've got to find your in, right? And it's all of this mental, the mental strength, that where do I fit in? Is this the right choice? Because the other thing that people don't talk about is the fact that a lot of times coaches will say a lot of things to bring you there, but then when you're there, it's a different reality, which also leads to different mental stresses. I always tell the athletes that I've worked with, and even just students in general, that everybody is going through something. And we've got to destigmatize the conversations of mental health. And the real challenge, especially with the male athletes that I've worked with, especially the athletes of color, one, if there's been a history of any type of trauma, a history of mental health, people tend not to talk about that stuff. It's a cultural thing that needs to be, more openly discussed. And then when you have, sports that are very aggressive, like football, showing any sign of mental, like I'm struggling, I'm not this tough person, I have other things going on, because you have yourself as the athlete, then you have yourself as the person away from the sport. And those two things you have to reconcile with sometimes, right? And, as a coach, I really feel that it's important to have that open conversation with your athletes, to saying, if you have something going on, you need to feel free to come and talk to me, right? Because there are, especially at the universities, there are a ton of resources available, whether it's just in the athletic department or at the university. Most universities have counseling and consultation, and they can work together in order to help the student move through and process everything that they're going through. Because the mental, the stress of mental, the mental stress that athletes go through, it's not just about playing, it's about acculturating to where you are, it's overcoming injuries. All of this stuff plays into what an athlete is going through on a mental capacity.
Coach Jay Hayes.
Can I add to that?
Oh yeah, go ahead, Mrs. Woods.
That Isaiah was also, he was on honor roll. He was playing as a true freshman. I kept on wondering, like, well, it can't be that bad, because every time he gets on the field, he's doing something. And I'm getting a letter from the coaches saying this kid is on honor roll playing at a Division I university. And wow, how can it be so bad that, something else is going on, because all these great things were happening. So that's why it took a little time to get through that, for me at least.
Well, I'd say you wouldn't be alone on that. I think all of us would be there, because Coach Hayes, Jay Hayes, I think a lot of athletes have an incredible ability to compartmentalize,
Sure.
and be in the moment when they play. And you were a player, you've been a coach for a long time. Have you seen an evolution in terms of yourself and what you have and how you deal with your athletes when they come to you with personal issues, things of this nature, that maybe in the beginning, because I know how it was when we played.
Right.
They didn't want to hear it.
Yeah. I mean, as myself as a player, I mean, you had to just put that stuff to the back and just soldier on. Even with my own children, all three of my children, my two sons and my daughter, were Division I athletes. And me being a coach, I wasn't as in tune with the issues as my wife was. Our son Jesse, when he was at Wisconsin, she was like, "We need to go see Jesse." I was like, "Why?" But she was always in tune with the kids, and from our daughter playing Division I basketball, and our youngest son playing at William and Mary. Susan was always more on top of that stuff. I was always working, and but as with my own players, I've seen guys over the years, 34 years of coaching, either major college football or professional football, guys dealing with a lot of different things, whether it be family issues, or they might have drug issues, or just all types of things. And it's a difficult road that they are on, trying to juggle all the things that are going on in their lives to be productive, not only as players, but as students, and then just as in social settings that they are exposed to. So it can be difficult.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Everson Walls, one of your teams was the Dallas Cowboys, and recently Dak Prescott, before his injury, came out and talked about mental health issues and things that he'd been going through, and was front and center on it. As a player, a former player, watching that had to be an incredible moment. And I'm wondering, did you think to yourself, back in my day, I don't know if I had anyone who stepped out there like that?
Well, I'll tell you what happened for me. I had guys step out for me. And I think you've heard me talk about this, Charles.
Yeah.
I was blessed to go to Grambling. And, that young man we're talking about here, he's I don't know if he was blessed enough to have the support that I had. Otherwise, I could easily see myself having that kind of pressure. My mom couldn't afford for me to go to school. I had to keep that scholarship. I didn't think I was very good, but these young men uplifted me. And the ironic part of it is, when you have those that necessarily don't make it, as we always think, you go to Grambling, you want to play pro ball, that's it. And I was one of those unusual ones that did. Well, those that should have been there didn't, and they are the ones that supported me. And so there's this effect that they have that is it makes sometimes an awkward relationship. They sacrifice so much for me. And as much as I always give them the love and praise, I think there's still something that they feel about themselves in comparison that has caused us to have an extremely, how can I put it, unusual and just disconnected, that's the word, a very disconnected relationship. So, and I know it all goes back to, you know, that pressure that we all really felt. And some people deal with it better than others, and it lasts longer with others. I talked with one of my friends, one of those two guys, years ago. It was 15 years ago, you know, and we had an iconic coach, Eddie Robinson. We were all about him, pleasing him. It was all about that. And many times, of course, men feel slighted. It's just the way it is. It's inevitable. No matter what you do, you never think you're going to get enough praise. So that he hung on to that for years. And as we always recollect, you know how old guys, we recollect all the time. We go back to those days. And then here I am thinking of it in a very positive manner. And that young man burst out in tears over the phone, which I did not expect, but I understood. And I know he was always emotional about it. He taught me how to be dedicated to your craft. He taught me that. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, his transition was never as smooth as he would have liked for it to be. And to this day, he's still trying to grasp with that.
Dr. Flores, when you hear that and you know that those transitions are so difficult anyway, let's add COVID to it. You know, I mean, heck, I took my shoes in to get them polished today, and the guy behind the counter, who I've known for 20 years, wouldn't let me leave the store. And I realized human contact has been diminished during COVID. So throw everything we're talking about tonight and add COVID to it. And what are we dealing with?
You know, when I was talking to Mike prior to this conversation, mentioned that there was a former athlete who, right before the national indoor track meet, who I really still feel he probably could have won a national title or at least placed in the top 3, the season was cut short. And as athletes, you know, we all know what that means. You know, there are those special seasons and you can't always replay that time. And, you know, I've had a lot of conversations with my former teammates, like, what would we have done our senior year, right? I would have missed out on state track. We would have missed out on our state softball, you know, championship run. All of these monumental things in an athlete's life, right? You hear, you play for the ring, you play for the championship. Like, that's everybody's dream that's an athlete. And in working with my athletes who have lost, you know, they lost their softball season, you know, our cross country season is different even this year. And, you know, there's still athletes that aren't playing football, and where I'm at, cases are starting to rise. You know, there's been teams that are shut down. You know, what it is I try to remind people, like, we're all in this together, right? And we are in a moment of time. And this is where we've got to focus on other things. Like, you still need to get your grades, because whenever sports does come back, in order for you to go on, you still have to be academically sound. You know, I talk to them about things like, you know, this is when you've got to take it in. You know, my girls hate hitting off of a tee for softball. They hate it. But I tell them, this is when you got to do that work. When we can't be together, these are the things that you do that are going to set yourself apart. Like, you have to be ready, because we don't know what that means, but it's the isolation of the team. It's the camaraderie that teammates have, you know, those special moments that make this very difficult. You know, last year, what we did for our seniors is we still had a senior night for them, where the coaches, we went and drove by their houses and then socially like drop stuff off to them to still allow them to experience that, you know, because as coaches, we realize, like, that's still an important part. It's a milestone, even though their senior season didn't end up how it was, how they envisioned it or how we envisioned it. We still needed to give them that closure to move on then to college. And who knows what's going to happen to the girls that are playing college softball this year, whether or not they're actually going to get a season. Yeah. but that's the kind of stuff that we always try to talk to. It's the constant communication. It's a Zoom meeting. It's how are you staying ready in order to move forward, but always reminding them, like, if you need help, you need to communicate, because in this space, we are somewhat distant to each other.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And we're talking about student athletes tonight, and that's where our concentration is, but we can apply this across the board. If you were in the drama club, you didn't get your senior play. If you were in the science club, you might not have gotten this, the statewide science competition that you've been working towards. Every stripe, every specialization, everything that people had, everyone lost. But of course, obviously, we're talking about student athletes. If anyone has any questions, make sure you send them into our chat, our chat group here, and we'll try and get your questions answered. Isaiah, I've got to come back to you because you've put in so much work to come out and tell your story, and then COVID comes in. Did it bring you back to those days? Did you have to battle even more, or were you now equipped that even with COVID, you could continue to move forward and do the things that you've wanted to do and work so hard to get to?
To be honest, I feel like COVID helped me in that way to just because my brain does move so fast and I'm always wondering what's the next thing, what do I have to do next? So with COVID, it kind of since the world slowed down, it gave me time to slow down and get to the projects that I've been wanting to get to, do the creative things that I've, always wanted to do, but just never had time, or in my head put it that I never had time because I'm always moving so fast. So I feel like in that way, it definitely calmed me down in a way. It slowed me down for sure.
Mrs. Woods, I know you worry each and every day because that's your son. So
Yes,
there's no
sir.
getting around that. When COVID kicked in, did you have any extra concerns, extra fears because of what you've gone through?
Absolutely. I did a lot of temperature checks.
Mm-hmm.
Just checking him because he lives with me. I mean, right now I'm in a different part of the state. I'm traveling, but we live together. So I'm always concerned. I always want him to now be, to be okay. So I am always checking, and maybe I might do it too much sometimes. I know one time I was like, I was in the kitchen. I'm like, my girlfriend was asking me, how's COVID been doing? I'm like, it's great, huh, Isaiah? We've been doing wonderful. Like, we haven't been getting on each other's nerves at all. And he was like, no.
Well, you didn't expect your son not to say something like that, right? That's
Of course.
that's what we do as children, but we sure as heck want mom close, that's for sure. I've got to ask all of you, and I think I'm going to direct this. I'm going to start out with Dr. Flores very quickly here, and I want to be able to get through all the panelists. We never talked about these things before, Dr. Flores, right? We've kind of established that, and you mentioned it in all sports, especially the so-called aggressive sports. You just didn't do it, but it's more and more now we're able to talk about it. And I think you mentioned destigmatization. Are we getting closer to that now, to where when these athletes come out and able to say these things, that they can continue on without worrying about their coaches wanting to put them to the side and teammates not understanding?
When I think about where it started, I really kind of think about Michael Phelps' story in Sports Illustrated, and how he talked about, what he had gone through after the Olympics, and how he felt personally, right? Despite all the success that he had. And it was the first major athlete that I can remember that talked openly about his struggles. And then following that, Derek Jeter's Players Tribune, in the May article, which, I always say that, we have these celebrations of or awarenesses in months, but it's not just a month. Mental health illness or recognition, it's every day. But it's made aware, right, in May. But he collected, or 26 athletes, wrote about their experiences in that. And so when you have these high achieving athletes, where most athletes from little kids dream to be, it kind of starts to change the conversation. And it wasn't just, all white. It was all different players, women, men alike, saying, this is our story. And so the more that happens, the better it becomes. With the other benefit, well, kind of the double-edged sword right here is the fact that social media, there's a lot more ways that students or individuals can get help, because there's doctors of psychology or counseling or mental health or even yoga, right? They have all of these tips that you can easily access, which then also helps cut down the cost, because getting mental help also is a cost, and not everybody has access to, doctors, or to be able to pay for that. So it's kind of shifted in realizing that we need to talk about this more. I think that it's a little bit easier to have those conversations starting at the collegiate level on up. I think that there needs to be more focus on it in the high school level, in the preparation of what these students are going to face as they continue to grow and mature into young men and women.
Isaiah, when you came out and told your story, you ended up leaving the University of Washington, but I don't believe you always leave friendships. So I'm sure you had guys back there and young ladies that you went to school with. Were you able to keep friendships? How were you embraced? How did people, talk with you about it? What was your experience there before you moved on to the next phase?
My experience there was great. Definitely, the only thing was I really didn't get like a real college student vibe till after I got out the hospital and was out of football, because that's when I was actually able to go to class,
Oh, you mean there's a whole campus out here? And it's not just the weight room and the practice field and
they have
what?
more than one library, free, you can rent books, so all of that stuff, just able to go around campus and just, it slowed me down. Like I said, I was able to just embrace where I was in my life at that moment. And just a lot of the people I was with were all super supportive. All my teammates understood me for sure. That was definitely like a brotherhood. I talked to most of them. All my older guys that are in the league, still talk to them. Dudes my age, still talk to them. Like it was all love pretty much. Like when I made that tweet that they talked about in that interview, it was really just for me. Just for me to be truthful with myself and get out my own feelings, how I felt. Because at first I wrote something just to let like the fans know I wasn't coming back, and to me it didn't seem genuine. So I rewrote it and just basically said what I felt. And from there, that showed me so much love. People that I didn't know hitting me up, young kids in my DMs just saying like, wow, you really helped me. Just, it made me realize that it was a way bigger issue than I thought it was.
So overwhelmingly for you, positive with social media, because sometimes social media can come at you in a way that none of us want to deal with, but sounds like you had a pretty good experience with it. Am I correct?
Sure. And I mean, I have tough skin, so I don't really care what people say, or listen to them. So
I need to hang out with you a little bit more, because I need to get my skin a little bit tougher on that. Mrs. Woods, as a mom, when he comes out like that, did you have a feeling with your social circle? Did anyone back away from you? Did people come closer and embrace you? What was your experience like? Because sometimes it goes further than just the young person who's involved.
Yeah, it was a lot of different layers. At first, when it first hit, you're like, well, what did I not do as a parent to make sure that my kid didn't go through this? What did I do to cause that? So you take on that, because as a mother, you want your kids to always be okay. And if they get hurt, you want to coddle them or put a Band-Aid on it or tell them that everything was going to be okay. And this isn't something that I was able to just fix. So I had a lot of love from a lot of my core group. I found out that there were other parents that had gone through similar stuff with their kids, but they just weren't willing to speak on it.
Yeah.
And, and then my thing was, I didn't have to go through this alone. I could have had support if we would talk about it. If the stigma was taken away and there were more people willing to talk about it and be more open and honest about it. So there was an outpouring of love and support. And even when like Isaiah left ESPN studios, when we were walking out, the cameraman stopped him and he said, "Hey, I'm a grown man, and you really stepped forward and said something." He's like, "I've been fighting depression my whole life and I've never been able to speak on it." And he commended Isaiah on him being able to be open and honest about it.
No,
it was great.
That tells us about all of us. And Everson, I come back to you as a student athlete. You talked about those experiences as a professional athlete. You've seen it, you've experienced it, you felt it. I mean, where are we today? I mean, it's got to be enlightening and somewhat inspiring, because I'm sure you knew things about teammates and others that never came to light anywhere else. And if they had come to light, they would have fought everybody about the whole thing, I'm sure, because it just wasn't accepted then, I'm sure.
Yeah, we have so much scrutiny these days from everyone. I mean, it's good that Isaiah is thick-skinned. Now, you have to be these days. It's almost a given. Some may not be as thick-skinned as they think they are, and of course, that's when some issues may arise. But as a kid, I remember, I don't know what we called it. I mean, growing pains. We had casual, benign terms for something that all of us went through. And thank God Isaiah has a mom like he has. I had a mom just like that. She had ways of trying to reach me when I was at my lowest point. You know how it is post-divorce, once again, identifying myself with sports that failed early on in my life. So at an early age, I was down. And she would, as I acted out, she would put articles. I think I told you this. She would put Dear Abby articles that would pertain to our failing or eroding relationships. She was, very direct, and yet also she approached it in a very soft way as well. So once again, blessed to be in the position I'm in, because I've seen so many instances to where we identify ourselves one way, that doesn't work out. We have no mental fallback. We have no mental cushion, to fall back on. And we're making decisions that we would never make before in other situations. I've seen it happen to people and good people. So, it's something, like you said, we don't talk about it, but we all still, it's unknown, right? We all know, I know that you know, but words are not spoken. We just accept it almost. And that's old school. That's old school talk, by the way.
Yeah. Fortunately, in a lot of ways, we're getting past the old school. I've got a question here, and I'm going to start it. This is for you, Dr. Flores, to start. And Coach Hayes, I want you to come in, because you said, your wife saw all this stuff because you were working, but I know that you've had a chance to look back and maybe you saw some of these things as well. And here's the question, Dr. Flores. Teenagers usually like to sleep a lot and drag themselves to school. As we well know, we're always struggling. Come on, let's go. This could be a sign of depression. And how can we spot the early signs of depression in teens and not just say, hey, come on, get your lazy butt out of bed?
Well, it is true. Major changes in like sleep or appetite, can be a signal, right? But that's where you've got to see, is this something that's out of the norm, or is it something that is just part of, staying up too late? I always tell my athletes all the time, you cannot, crash, like a crash study, even as an athlete, I would do it. I would stay up till 1:00 in the morning. Sometimes studying, sometimes not, you know what I'm saying? And then having to get up for cross country practice at 4:30 in the morning. But it's the changes, it's the withdrawals, right? It's not being socially engaged. It is the apathy. It's things like that in combination, when there's a shift from how the individual was into something that's completely different, that's when you have to start really being aware. But I mean, we all know, like, high school kids, they don't really want to sleep. College kids don't really want to sleep either. It's just the reality. And that all of those things in itself are not saying this person is headed down a bad path, but they're just signs. It's the big shifts in mood swings. Those types of things are things that maybe we should sit down and have a conversation. Maybe if you're in high school, you talk to the counselor or the social worker or things like that to kind of see. It's the shift in academics of the students normally really good, and then they start to struggle. Those are the things can trigger signs that I might need to kind of start paying a little bit more close attention.
Coach Hayes, whether it's your kids, whether it's your players, are these certain things that you would observe as well and see some of these shifts and some of these patterns?
Without a doubt, the sleeping for sure, the fact that they would stay up, my players, my children, all that would stay up really, really late. I at times will do it too. I should go to bed. You're tired, go to bed. My parents used to tell me that all the time. Hey, you're falling asleep, go to bed. And but for sure, with all the things that the kids do nowadays, playing the video games, I'm sure keep them up much longer than they should, doing mindless things that, they say they enjoy it. I'm not a video game guy, but I know with my players and my children, both, they really like those types of things and stay up and do those things. And you're burning the candle at both ends, and makes it hard when you want to perform at your optimum. The next day when you need to go out and play against these other people who are top athletes themselves. So those things make it difficult for you to be the best you can be. But it's hard to set those things aside and keep your focus on and just be kind of robotic, that you're going to say, I'm going to be tops in my field in academics. I'm going to be tops in my field in athletics. And I'm not going to let anything take me off that road. But it's hard not to relax. I think nowadays kids want to kind of have an outlet. And that leads itself to some of those pitfalls that you're looking at, where you're staying up too late, you're on your video games, you're on your phone. Phones are killer in all of this. You look and you see your children, or you see your players, they can't wait to get their phones out, when you get on a break or any of those things. So I know that is always difficult. And I mean, I've looked at my phone a couple times during this, so I shouldn't talk. Yeah, it's powerful. It drags you in. So yes,
it definitely does. Mrs. Woods, I come back to you because there may not be a doctorate attached, but I think you've got one already. What advice do you have for parents out there, having been through this with your son, and trying to either recognize, spot, be there, all of those other things? How do you educate us on something like that?
Let me just say, so since Isaiah's come out with his story, he's lost actually 3 friends to suicide. And every time I hear the story, I wonder, what could have been done differently. I'm thankful that Isaiah and I have a good relationship. I feel like I really took the time to listen to him. I know him, he's my kid, so I saw that he was becoming a different person. Again, he was achieving everything on a high level, honor roll, playing as a true freshman, but he had become this kid that I didn't know. And he was angry or just really irritable all the time. There was something that was going on. So you just have to really pay attention to the signs and ask them questions. And sometimes you got to ask it over and over again. And to where they're gonna get frustrated. Isaiah used to be like, "Mom, nothing is wrong," and I'm like, "Son, something is wrong. I can tell something is bothering you," and let them know that it's a safe place for them to speak openly, and let them know that they can come to you. I think that's the most important thing. They have to know that they can come to you and not be judged.
Yeah.
And just to be their parent and to love them no matter what.
Very quickly, is there a line that you found yourself fighting about? Am I becoming a helicopter parent as opposed to being that parent you want to be, or enter into it? Because we get that tag.
I think I've been kind of always a helicopter parent, Isaiah. Would you say?
Pretty much.
I was at all the practices. I was at all the games. I was always involved in everything. So I tried to immerse myself into everything that he did, and also be supportive. So, I told him from the beginning, I wasn't raised with my mom. I told him, I'm going to smother you. That's just the way it's going to go, and you're going to have to deal with it. So he already knew from the beginning that's the way it was going to be, and he was going to have to deal with it. So when we made adjustments along the way.
And nothing wrong with moms smothering their kids with love. Michael Davis, you've been out there, and I've used you talked to everyone else on the panel. I know you have a quick comment for us.
Yeah, just real quick. Just want to say thank you, Chieko, Mama, for coming on board and being very open and sharing your story. Zay as well. Really appreciate it. You're saving lives just in your story, and just being very open and transparent. So my thing was, and I know I spoke to Mom about this, that the guys I play with, including myself and, Coach Hayes, I know you saw it, we were in a mindset of some guys that we had to make it, right? To save our families, to save mom, to save dad. And we put all this pressure on ourselves to do that, to get to the league, to get the big contract, the signing bonus. And the statistics don't pan out for that to happen, but this pressure is there to make it, and this anxiety starts to build up. And I know for me personally, I had a dad that I equated to conditional love based on me making it. And so when I decided to stop my career, I played 2 years of CFL ball. I never heard from my dad again, and I heard from my dad when I got my scholarship to go to Berkeley, but before that, through high school, I didn't know who my dad was. Got to UC Berkeley, go Mike, right? And then when that was over, got to CFL, and I said, hey, I'm about to go to grad school. Done, going. Didn't know where he went, right? And that festered in my life, not understanding this conditional love syndrome. So it was tied to my purpose. My purpose for me, luckily for my mom and the village that I had with my grandmother, like, no, you're bigger than that. Your purpose is much bigger than playing ball. That's just something that you do. You do it well, but that's not who you are. But if I had somebody like my dad listen to him, that conditional love is going to go hand in hand with how well I played on the football field. And so that's another element that I think sometimes we're scared to talk about. I go to counseling now. And I should have went back when Zay's age, but I didn't have the courage to do it. But those things festered in my life and made me see things differently. And I wish I would have came back to do that hard lifting and hard work to identify my purpose and my identity and stay true to that identity going forward in my life. And then the story, I had a chance to talk to my dad before he passed away. And so I had all this anger built up, but all I could do was hug him because I understood where he was coming from, his flaw. He only knew what he knew. but then I had a better understanding about who I was and my purpose. So I think this conversation, this dialogue is going to work generationally to help out a lot of folks to have those tough conversations, but more importantly, to be able to look themselves in the mirror and say, man, this is my brand. Me and Zay talked about this. This is my true identity. It's not what UC Berkeley said or UW said. This is what I say my identity is. And now I have peace about who I am. The anxiety level starts to go down. So just the thick skin comes into play like Zay talked about. I don't have to worry about that because I know my purpose. I get it. Dad, I understand your flaws, but I'm good. That's why I can hug you. So I wanted to say that real quick. And then, me and Zay were talking about having something at the end that celebrates the journey. This is what this is all about. This is the journey of where you're going to find your purpose and identity. And having something with Ethos that Zay is going to go ahead and brand. He's going to make up a logo for us. We're going to have fun with this thing and make a campaign about this thing because this is more than just 1 hour. This is more conversation that's due this particular topic. So I just wanted to say that and say thank you guys, and I'll be quiet now.
Oh, this is Michael. That was great, and thank you for sharing that. We have about 7 minutes left, I believe, in our time here. And you mentioned celebration because we've talked about issues, we've talked about things throughout, but we're seeing true celebration in front of us in Isaiah. We're seeing true celebration in front of us, as far as I'm concerned, and his mom, Chieko, who's come through it with him. Dr. Flores sees it every day and has wins. Everson, you talked about it with different people. Jay, same thing. So let's talk about a little celebration here, Isaiah. When we talk about celebrating where we are, how we got here, what are the things that come to mind for you, and how can you put that out there for others so that people understand that, hey, you're going to go through some tough stuff, but that doesn't mean you're not going to come out the other side and continue to work day in and day out?
Like Mike just touched on, it's a process. Everything you go through, it's like a roller coaster. There's going to be downs, there's going to be ups, but just make sure you stay on the top. And once you know who you are, nobody can bring you down and nobody can kind of try to sway you one way or the other. If you're solid in yourself and know who you are, then nobody could touch you, really.
Coach Hayes, give me a celebration.
Well, you just, there's a lot of things that tie into this, but for me, it's falling back on my faith and just knowing that, God, Jesus tells you, I've overcome the world, and we can too. It may not be easy, but we just have to keep on keeping on and just fight as much as you can. You're going to have, like Zay said, you're going to have good days and bad days, and some those good ones are good, and just don't let the bad ones be so bad that it pulls you down. And if it does, hopefully you have a toolbox that you can go to get out of it, and that I think is very important.
Everson, now I'm about to put Cool in the Gang on and play Celebration, but I know you always have good words for all of us, so help us out here. Let's continue the celebration.
Well, I'm kind of like Coach. I've always had a lot of faith. The way my family has always been, and as much as I've strayed, I guess like a lot of people, there have always been examples, from not just people, not just from church stories and biblical stories, but just the people that are in my neighborhood that have shown so much friendship and grace towards other people. Now, they might talk about you behind your back when they help you, but they have genuine love for you. So I was blessed in that manner. My dad always told me, never get too high, never get too low. And that's kind of the way I've always looked at it. You have to be prepared to know that everything, we ask God for everything. And as the preacher says, sometimes the answer is no, and you have to be prepared for that. So that has kind of helped me prioritize a lot of things in my life and help me move forward in a manner where I can say that are more acceptable for me and to me.
Dr. Flores, we've got about 4 minutes left. I want to make sure I get you and Mrs. Woods in on the celebration. Then I want to finish with you, Dr. Flores, maybe giving parents places to go, websites, books, things of that nature. So Dr. Flores, give us a celebration before I ask Mrs. Woods.
I think much like what Isaiah said, I think it's important to find something that you like outside of, your sport or things like that. Everybody needs that outlet, whether it's understanding yoga or drawing or painting or, anything, sitting in a park, learning something new. I think that, especially in times of COVID, is very important, because while the world has slowed down, it gives us a time to become introspectful and really learn who we are at our core. That then once you understand that, you're able to progress forward with a different mindset.
Mrs. Woods, I want you to have the last spot here, because you and Isaiah are a big reason why we're here tonight. And we've seen an incredible story that we're seeing continued out there each and every day. So help us out with another big celebration, or how you see this.
Well, every day that I have my son and I get to see him and hug him and love on him, it's a celebration. So that's what I cherish. I cherish him and our relationship. And so I celebrate that.
Dr. Flores, and thank you, Mrs. Woods. Dr. Flores, websites, books, things that you can recommend for parents as they start to explore these things when they start to have questions.
So I saw that there was a question in the chat as to where athletes can go. And what I really want to say is that when we're going through counselor training, right, you need people that are willing to come and speak with you. And that's across the board. And those services are free and they fill up. So my recommendation is to look at your local universities that have counselor programs and tap in there, because that will give you somebody to talk to, somebody that's training and being supervised. Like, I couldn't have learned half of what I did without people being willing and vulnerable to do that. I also think that you've got to also be aware of what you're looking for. Another thing is that, there's a lot of resources, especially for the BIPOC community and communities of color, of finding the counselor that is a good fit for you. Counselor fit is very important. And I really want to stress that you have to find somebody. It's like trying on shoes. Every pair isn't gonna fit. You're not gonna like everything. You have to find the person who you feel comfortable with. And that can be hard, because you're having to retell your story over and over to people. But once you have that fit, it's like a good coach. It will benefit you for the rest of your life.
That's fantastic. And we're all looking for that good fit. I just want to thank each and every one of you, Dr. Flores, Mrs. Chieko Woods, Isaiah Woods, Coach Jay Hayes, Everson Walls, and of course, Michael Davis leading Ethos Village. And as we always say, in the village, it takes all of us to raise a child. And we're all trying to raise each other. And I want to thank everyone who joined us tonight. Hope that you were able to take something away from it. And all of us continue to work on this very, very important topic. And I'm just so glad there's light on it now and we don't have to hide from it anymore. Isaiah, can't thank you enough for being the focal point of this and taking that on. Not only do you have thick skin, but your character's beyond reproach, young man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks,
guys.
Mike, thank you. Take care, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Great job, Charles, as always.
Thank you. You guys are the best.